Kate Falcha. Welcome to Irish Granny Helen, and this is book 2, part 2 of the Afterlife Revolution by Whitley and Strieber. Turns out to be a very interesting book. I had completely forgotten. It's been so long since I've actually read it and taken these notes. It's almost like rereading it. Very interesting book. I hope you're enjoying it. If you haven't watched part 1, go back and watch part 1. It helps. And now we're on chapter 3, A Flash of Light. So 3 hours after her death, he saw Anne in his mind's eye walking towards him, and she looked radiant, victorious. That night in his sleep, she waved at him and moved up close and then away. He wanted to go and help her journey, and he felt himself leave his body and join her and travel for a bit, but was stopped by the cord attached to his body, and he woke up alone and in grief. And this is what she told him. I should mention, they did meditate like a crazy amount. Every day they belonged to that group, you know. So she told him, I no longer experience subjective or sentimental love. I'm in love with reality. I'm part of the joy of consciousness. I am me and all, being both at the same time. Objective love is the energy that created the universe and that sustains its expansion. There's a quest for knowledge going on. Everything seeks to be known. This desire is objective love. It loves all knowledge and not just the things that are pleasant and nice. It loves and desires the dark too. So the next day, he got a message from a close friend, back to the book, who said that she was doing her blog. She was typing, and an incredibly strange thing happened. As she was typing, thank you for letting us know that she died peacefully. If we can do anything to help out in any way, please let us know. There was what she describes as a brilliant flash of light and a huge explosion in their house. At first, they were terrified and then puzzled to discover that nothing had exploded. The house was fine. The explosion took place just as she typed the last word, no, K-N-O-W. She says in her blog, we think it was Anne making her presence known. So he said the grief journey involves letting go of doubts and guilt. In meditation, he asked Anne why she did this flash, and I'd forgotten this. She answered because it was fun and to get her friend's attention. Then he realized that Anne was following the plan to communicate after death, that they had agreed on this and she was doing it. And Anne said she's trying to prove that there is life after death. And then he heard from somebody else. So all of his friends are getting these odd events and messages and stuff and telling him. So at 6 o'clock in the morning after her death, a filmmaker of our acquaintance, Alex Rutaru, found himself waking up quite suddenly. It was unusual for him to awaken at that early hour. He immediately felt the presence of Anne all around him. She said to him, I have lots of ideas. In the next moment, he found the way to end a film that he'd been struggling with for 2 years. He has a lot of it shot and has been unable to come up with an ending. In this life, she'd been concerned about the fact that he was stuck. And now, from the next, she gave him what he needed. There are many moments of contact like this amongst their circle of friends and acquaintances. He said in his mind again, he asked Anne for some sort of sign that she still existed. And within seconds, his cell phone rang. And he lives in a pretty isolated area, and it turned out that cell coverage was more or less normal. I answered it to find a good friend from Nashville on the other end. And she said, Whitley, I just had a message from Anne. She said to call you and tell you she was all right. Except that, she was dead. He, excuse me, he knew that Anne was conscious and aware and had new powers of communication with accurate vision. The future is more clear, she told him, but still not an open book. The dead can tell the difference between inevitable, probable, possible, and impossible. Anne said, numbers of people who are aware must die, and the live ones have to communicate with them across the life-death bridge to get consensus. So we all play a part in this. You know, we all have to get ourselves ready for that. We have to enrich souls on both sides, and this is what life and the universe are all about. She had these messages that she was giving him through their friends, and it made him realize that she was conscious and she was communicating. It was hard to believe that it was real. He said, we want signs. We keep asking for more signs. It's better to open your mind with questions than to not close your mind with belief. So I starred this next statement, and I think this is so interesting. So I'll give you the statement, and then I'll give you my take on it that I wrote in the margin. It just jumped out at me as being so important. We're not here to see the future. We're here to experience the present and to understand ourselves. Therefore, there's a limit on how much we can be told about the future. And then I got this thought, this is me speaking now, as I was reading this book and taking notes, and I read that part, we're not here to see the future, we're here to understand. I got the message that tarot is a tool for understanding and not predicting. It's much more valuable as a method of helping us to have insight into our motivations and our maybe past trauma, our karma, our relationships, our psychological state, the energy we're living in, to understand the people around us, even the ones we don't know. That tarot is a tool to understanding. And that's a really important message. So this new relationship with his wife, Anne, is deeper. He says that they communicate. She's not just a companion. And they're helping each other. And he was told by her that it's better to have questions and to be adventurous, and better than having the comfort of belief. There's a value to not knowing what's going to happen. You know, to know takes away your agency. Our big fear as humans is death, and fear makes us violent. That's the message that rings through this book. You need to feel sympathy for the people you see that are violent, because they're living deeply in fear. Anne says the teaching that we're part of the living presence of the universe. This is what she's doing. She wrote of her near-death experience in theunknowncountry.com. I guess this was her website. The love that led me home is how she called it. All that really survives of us is the love we've made in the world. It's a simple truth that will stay with me forever, even when I pass again across the threshold, this time never to return, especially then. She said this is after her near death. And meant, of course, objective love, the great creative force that binds the world together. Recently, she expanded on the idea when she said to me, love is the basis of being. In other words, it's something like gravity, without which the material world would not exist. But without love, nothing, not even gravity, would exist. So it isn't just an emotion, but also the fundamental building block of the universe. What did Jesus say? Let's see. So this is what remains. A few days after she died, one reader of the website wrote, Anne was strong on my mind during yesterday's commute. I struggled to focus on her message to have joy instead of crying. Just then, a car pulled up in front of me and the license plate read, Joy to you. You can't make these things up. He was sad in his car and he heard a song and it was reassuring to him. He asked Anne, is that you? And the car in front of him, the plates on it were believe. So there's a vast awakening going on right now. You can't help but notice. I mean, there must be 25 million psychics and spiritual people and card readers and, you know, all over the internet. It's truly kind of a revolution. And it's because we must use the living and the dead to awaken. It's a relationship. And it can happen now because more people are having near-death experiences. More people are becoming mediumistic. They're tuning into their psychic abilities. So let us venture into the unexplored territory and return. Near-death experiences help to create shamans. Chapter 4. Whitley, I Need Your Help is the name of the chapter. In 2004, in October, her health suddenly declined. So they're driving along in the car on the way home, and she said to him out of the blue, I want you to know I've had a wonderful marriage. And he's like, huh? What? That's kind of random. She didn't say that she had a terrible headache and it was getting much worse very fast. When the car stopped, she ran into the apartment and into the bathroom and got a bottle of Aleve and said, Whitley, I need your help, and collapsed on the ground. So he was due on Coast to Coast. And as he caught Anne, the phone rang and it was Art Bell connecting to be on Coast to Coast. And he told him what was going on. And Art Bell told him, hang up and call 911. God, what are you doing? So he thought Anne was dying. It was a total shock. They went to the emergency room. The doctor says, this is a very bad brain bleed. The chance of survival is guarded. Whitley looked it up while they waited and found out that based on the medical description that there was a very small chance of survival and she would probably be severely impaired. He didn't know that she wasn't in her body at the moment. They talked later. She was an explorer in the undiscovered country that few returned from, but thanks to modern medicine, some did and described near-death experiences. Her experience found herself in a way station like a railroad terminal. So she drops unconscious on the floor. She's dying, right? And this is what she experienced. She's at this railroad terminal filled with people waiting with bags. And she heard this voice. You can go on or you can go back. So meanwhile, back in the material world, they're trying to find a better hospital that can better address her problem. It's so rare. And she's taken across Los Angeles to UCLA, where they have a stroke ICU. Well, if you're going to get good care anywhere, it's going to be there. That's for sure. So he described her aura. He saw from day one of meeting her, he'd always been able to see her aura. That's really interesting. He prayed 24/7 and he alternated with meditative techniques that they'd learned together. And her condition, he said, was really bad. He had to make hard medical decisions. And he and their son agreed that no more treatments that would cause impairment to her thoughts. She wouldn't want to live like that. And after days, she suddenly woke up and she was absolutely fine. The next day, she wouldn't wake up. And she had developed spinal meningitis. Her temperature soared dangerously. He and her son spent the whole night putting cold cloths on her to try to cool her down. Eventually, her tubes were removed, but she developed what's called ICU psychosis. which lasted days and days, and she just behaved erratically and wildly and out of control. It's emotional behavior that you're really not in control of, and it's brought on by the trauma. This trauma, to be hooked up to machines to keep you alive. The thing I can best think of it as is dogs that go kennel crazy. They're in the pound for so long that they just become irretrievable. Anyway, I don't mean that she was like a dog. I hope you understand what I mean. That there are serious cognitive effects of this sort of trauma and isolation. So she was released to rehab, and he said it was like a Dickens novel where they went to this rehab, and she became unconscious again, like she was retreating. And he knew from research that she had hydrocephalus. He just knew because he was looking it up. And he told the staff at the rehab, and they made fun of him. They said, "Go home. Where'd you get your medical degree?" So he had a doctor friend in Texas who was able to track down her neurologist and asked the neurologist to check on her. And the neurologist came into the hospital and looked at her and said, "Yeah, she has hydrocephalus." So finally, he needed his brother, a lawyer, to call the head of the UCLA neurosurgery department and have his lawyer brother threaten malpractice to get her readmitted to UCLA because she didn't belong in rehab. So finally, after a long course of treatment and a shunt to drain off the fluid in her brain, she retained coherence. She suddenly saw her cat that had been dead for 5 years, and she began to tell about her near-death experience. So thanks to new medical treatments, death-defying abilities, more people are returning from the brink of death, and they're carrying the story of their travels, and that's really what it's like. She said she was transformed. It was a new vision of reality, like a modern shaman. It was not death, like death-tempting rituals, but death-defying medical procedures, but it came out to be the same sort of experience for her. Ancient rituals were about tempting death, and it was remarkable if the initiate survived, then that was a special person. It was so rare that they brought back stories from the center of their religious belief and practice. So the examples that he's using now, we're talking still about the ancients who would use shamanic ritual to tempt death. That's how they came back with the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian pyramid texts. These texts are describing mythology that could be understood in their own time, but are really not understood today. There are consistencies in near-death experiences. People enter a loving light. They see the approach of dead loved ones. Now, these are generalizations. It doesn't happen to everybody exactly like this. They journey into worlds that seem like physical reality, but they have a new understanding of their relationship with their souls. They challenge their approach to death and dying. The soul is real. Our reality is a tiny piece of the true whole. Consciousness is part of us, and we are part of consciousness. And our bodies are designed to filter out the larger reality. Most near-death experiencers return with personal relationships to God. That's just a word we'll use for a concept. This feels like a familiar friend and an unknowable presence. Most of people describe this. It's comfortable and mysterious at the same time. After her near-death experience, Anne no longer had any fear of death, but she was also free, as she put it, of belief. She was past the confusion of the myths, the spiritually alive, and not in some kind of weird awe for God on a throne. No. She said man is in God, and man is God, and God is in man, and it's all one. Chapter 5, Laughter and Shadows. So she says there's no master and no teacher. She wasn't a master. She wasn't a teacher. She seemed to have received inexplicable knowledge just from the experience. Whitley had okay. So he had a friend who had died the day before actually appear in his mind's eye and said, what am I supposed to do now? And his answer was, I didn't really know him personally. He was a celebrity, and I didn't know what to tell him, but that he needed help. And I told him where to go for the help. And he said that this sort of uncertainty and being stuck thing had to do with ego. That was interesting. Said there was a light behind him. I could see it that was very dim. And he said to me, who am I? Who are you? And Whitley said, I'm Whitley Strieber. And he replied, you're some nobody. I expected to be met by Mother Teresa or somebody like that. And now this is in deep meditation. This is happening to him. So he's made a connection. Whitley laughed and he said, well, she's not here. He went away, this celebrity, and I lost contact with him for a time. And when I saw him again, he realized that he'd been extremely cruel in his life and was literally twisted with regret. He still will wander on this level for a long time, slowly shedding his big ego and bad memories that go with it. Once he's just a tiny fragment, he'll probably drift into a womb and return to this world more or less at random. Now, this is a description of somebody who's just not ever given thought to any of this. So it's new. It's like not being able to drive and being handed the keys to a fancy car. He just didn't know what to do with it all. Go back to school. But it's all about ego. And I thought that was interesting because he didn't name the celebrity, but somebody that he recognized anyway. So Anne said that she came back from this near-death experience with a great ability to be able to let go of ego. She says it gets in the way of inner growth. It's a hard one for all of us. She believed that his visitors helped him with this issue because he was humbled. Once she walked out in the middle of a speech to see how his ego would be negatively affecting his soul's health. And she did this on purpose. He's making a speech and he's being a big shot. And she just got up and walked out because she wanted to sort of, nudge him about his pride. So he had many lessons in humility from these ET visitors. He was connected to the spirit of a dog from his teens. And Anne pointed out that dog is God backwards. One dog from childhood visited him often. And once the dog brought a strange vision of them almost in a head-on wreck, and he knew to turn off that road when it became a reality while driving in England. So he's got this like little spirit dog that gives him messages. That's pretty cool. So when they were first a couple, she learned that he wanted to be a writer, and so she went on a project of literary self-education to help him. She had not had the opportunity to go to school when she was younger, and she took this opportunity so that she could help his career. She felt that was his job, and she became his editor and the source of his ideas. He said she was his muse, and he gives her full credit. He didn't take all the glory for himself. One Saturday morning, there was a knock on the door, and it was an off-duty postman, and he had my manuscript tied up in a neat bundle. He said he'd found it in the bottom of the mailbox with no postage on it, not even an envelope around it, just a heap of pages. And this is someplace he delivered mail. And the literary agent had simply tossed it in the trash as if it were garbage. As the postman gathered it up, he had found my name and address on the title page, and he brought this back to him from the trash at the agent's office. And he said, this is really good. My wife and I read it, and we both really loved it. That's a bit of a blow. He said the book Communion upset their happy life. 2013, and if you don't know that story, you have to go back. Read the story, read the book Communion. It's probably not as foreign and scary now as it was then, because it was never talked about before. Really scary stuff. And he was ridiculed mercilessly because he describes in detail the sort of physical interference of these aliens, and people just thought that was hilarious. I can't imagine the sense of vulnerability and fear that would go through you when it happened, and then to talk about it, and then to be greeted with that kind of scorn and humiliation. It must have been very difficult. And he said it upset their happy life. In 2013, she had a seizure in the middle of the night. She woke up in an ambulance with no memory of it. And after x-rays, they were normal, showed no tumor. Her brain was normal. And they thought she had taken some cold medicine. Would that have done it? And he was afraid the visitors had caused it. Oh, because he got tumors after witnessing purple orbs one night, like, on his eyes. He also feared all the CT scans after her stroke. Would they cause a tumor? She had more seizures, and this convinced UCLA to share the scans they did. And finally, the right person saw the right scan, and they realized she had an aggressive brain cancer. So there was something wrong with her when she had that initial seizure. They just weren't getting a diagnosis. So she was calm about it. He was terrified. He knew that she would die. So did she. So they're waiting for surgery, and she was at peace, and he was struggling with cures and trials and anything to get the tumor to stop growing. But after a year, she started having strokes. And she reminded him, what looks like death to us looks like birth to souls. Gotta remember that. So he knows another couple who have stayed connected after the death of one of them. And she always says to him, I'm right here. So there is more than what we can see or hear or feel. And he compares it to like radio waves or light waves or sound frequencies or smells. There are instruments to detect all of this, but we don't have an instrument that's capable of detecting the soul yet. He hears her in his mind, and Anne did give him proof in that, the last chapter. She tried really hard. She yells at him. She sees the world through a slit. Oh, he sees the world through a slit, and it makes her mad. Some psychics see more, but souls are less dense. Their vibration is faster. It's hard to capture. Chapter 6, The Journey of Souls. Some website readers have been contacted by Anne. She told one that she returned to communicate with Earth by going from blue to unguent blue. That's interesting. From light to dark, which is going from a higher vibration to a lower vibration. That's one of the things that they talk about quite a bit, in the metaphysical world. That it's very difficult for disincarnate souls to contact the material world because they have to drag themselves down to a much lower vibration, and it's really difficult. But unguent is an interesting word. That's why I hesitated, because I wasn't sure I'd written it properly. unguent is an ointment. Yeah, an unguent is anointed, holy. She says to a soul, this is like scuba diving. Why are we so dense? What's that all about? Not, dense, but heavy, dense. To manifest in this reality for the purposes of discovery and learning, you have to lower your energy, and it limits your vision, and it gives life impact. Acting spontaneously and lets us look into the reasons for our behaviors and to come to and understand ourselves. So when they come and they contact us, this is what they bring with them. But making that communicative contact is really difficult. We intentionally ignore the non-physical. We have blinders on to the non-physical. Without them, we would be completely overwhelmed. Our past and our future information and would overwhelm us, and we would know too much. Life needs to be meaningless, I guess, on this level. When you die, the more knowledge you bring with you, the more you see and the more you know. So what she's saying is that doing the hard work here in the physical plane benefits your soul. When you die, you're better prepared to deal with it. People with empty lives are souls with very vague memories who wander around a bit lost. They don't it's like they haven't used their free will. The dead get to contemplate what they did in life. Oh, good. In the physical, we gather knowledge. In the non-physical, we seek to understand. That's kind of the difference. Souls are enormously complex. Bodies are brief and transitory. We can't do it all in one life. So, we have to embrace that notion too. The time between lives is spent in contemplation about what we've done and planning for the future. Some return right away. For example, those who die in war. And it's interesting. I don't know if you guys will remember this, but a few years ago, I did a book, something like We've Been Here Before. I can't remember the name of it, by an Orthodox rabbi who does regressive hypnosis. And we had a long talk about how the phenomenon of how many people have reincarnated quickly from the Holocaust, because that war was so awful and so many very young people died without really getting to accomplish what this life was meant to accomplish for them fully, and they reincarnated rather quickly. And some souls, though, will ascend because they're ready, and some will enter the light, and some will linger and be reborn, and some will descend to greater densities to learn better. So he asked what to do to make the most of your physical life and to help souls. And he thought about channeling with somebody called Glynis McKay. So he texted her. Oh, wait a minute. He tested her with hairdresser Jay's hair. So I'm not quite sure what happened here. I think he actually gave her hair from his hairdresser Jay to test her ability to chant, like to hold it and to channel. And she said, "Howie, Howie." So, okay, what's she talking about? This is a mistake. So they asked Jay, and Jay said, "Well, my real name is Howard, and only my sister called me Howie." So he asked Glynis after that. He thought, well, maybe she's not so wrong. So he asked her, "Do you see the dead all the time?" And she said, "No, but there's someone with you right now." I thought, do tell. He's testing her, right? And she says he's wearing a tuxedo and playing a piano, and now he's holding up a violin. And he says to tell you his name is Milton. For an instant, I was blank, and then I remembered. I did almost crash the car. I had not thought of Milton A. Ryan Jr. in at least 30 years. He'd been the older brother of a boyhood friend, Mike Ryan, whose story figures in Ed Conroy's book about me. Report on Communion is the name of the book. He'd not been a great part of my life, except for one thing. This is the older brother, Milton. When he practiced the Beethoven violin concerto in his room and the notes floated out across the neighborhood, his playing gave me a great gift, my lifelong love of classical music. I had not been thinking of Mitty, that was his nickname. In fact, I hadn't thought of him in all that time, not since his death in the early 70s, but here he was in the car with us, and she had simply described him and given me his precise name. That's great. So just driving along, and he's challenging this channeler, and this comes up. So this gave him confidence that maybe she could help him contact Anne. Now, this woman is Scottish, and interesting statistic, measurably 10% of Scots have second sight. ESP. In 1744, Emanuel Swedenborg tried to reform Christianity as a spiritual movement, and he tried to do it with contact between the living and the dead. And channeling went on and became well known by the mid-1800s. Oh, here we go into Spiritism again. This is just such a weird synchronicity. There was the three Fox sisters and their spirit rapping, the tables moving, people rapping. Lots of early deaths happened in the 1800s, and these sorts of seance type contacts, mediumistic channeling, connecting with the dead was very popular. People died young. But there was also lots of money involved, and they were called frauds. But in 1904, a skeleton in their cellars supported their story that they had told everybody there's a buried murder victim in this house. When they were channeling, that would be what they would say. And people were like, yeah, you're full of it, because that's never happened. Well, later on, it was discovered it had. He says he's heard rapping for years in his New York State cabin. And this is where 7 beings eventually appeared to him from between life and death. One appeared at the foot of the bed and held his hand and then disappeared. He meditated with the 6 others. He eventually ended up selling the house. And on the last night of living in this house, a star floated out of the room, and he saw 6 forms within this golden light of the star. So we have the following. He says, nightly rappings, a seemingly physical being, the one that held his hand, 7 orbs of light and a star. I observed these things, and carefully, I'm not mistaken about them. Anne came in one night and heard the thuds, but was not comfortable staying in the room to meditate with people she couldn't see. There's a comment in their book, Supernatural. I have studied religion for 3 decades now. I don't run into many new ideas. But this notion is shockingly new, the soul as a plasma-like energy that can superpower our imaginal capacities and so generate the movies of visionary experience. Okay. So they were able to take many forms, this energy, and the guy on the bed was real, but lighter than a regular human being, but he could feel him holding his hand. Anne said to him after she died, I'm in a dream, but I'm also me. So he believed that he inherited his psychic ability from his mother and his maternal great-grandmother, who had been a medium. So how to connect with the dead has to do with love. It's a principle of higher physics. It's a fundamental attraction. You need to live in a state of objective love. In 1976, he saw 6 orbs at his grandmother's funeral. They were there to get her soul to leave her body. She had wanted to live as old as her own mother had lived. And she hung around until the 1980s. She was unaware she was dead. She was waiting for that magic number. It's so funny. I'd forgotten about this. So one can let one's love join objective love as a humble part of the whole. And if you do that, then even though you're still just a little person struggling alone on this earth, you are also all love everywhere beyond time and pain. He saw his dead grandmother 3 times. He saw a lady dusting furniture in a house in Italy. I'll read that to you. He said to help souls that are just wandering around. I mean, this lady is hanging around the house, attached to the house, still dusting, and she's dead. That would be my purgatory, housework for eternity. So to help them, you have to go out of your own body or raise its vibration so you can touch them and turn them and send them on their way. And when you try to do this, you'll find that you can. We all know how. And this is because we also have an instinctive knowledge at the soul level. Those who are trapped in the physical wander, they have no idea what to do or where to go. The heavy ones fall like tears, forgotten. Some, like Anne, ascend, then turn around to face life from their new perspective, seeking to help tend this garden. Others rise and rise, seeking beyond the stars toward the expanding border of consciousness, the limit of ecstasy. I, Whitley, hunger for this myself. I feel it in me. I sense what it is, ascension, a new song that I and all of us have always known. Okay, chapter 7. The living will know the dead. We on Earth have cycles beyond those that humanity affects, and our environment is changing. And he's talking Gaia, he's talking the Earth, how to prepare for this. This book discusses preparing the soul that we possess. We possess inner souls, but how to open the inner door and use them. I mean, we have them, but we don't use them. We need the help and the wisdom of the dead. They have been trying to reach out to us, mediums, psychics, and now what he calls the afterlife revolution. Humans trying to increase the number of strong souls and intelligence and predictive abilities. So it's like we have to get our act together here so that when we die, our souls can help people who are still alive. That's what they're saying. So he regularly communicates with Anne in his mind and heart. There's no physical proof, he said, except one time he did see a small spark. She told him that she wanted to keep up her website, the diary, through him. So he's writing through her. And thoughts flew into his mind onto the first page, which, surprised him. He posted this, these are her words, not his, on Valentine's Day. Anne's Valentine to you. She says, we have trouble believing what is real, even when it's staring at us right in the face, especially if it's not what we want to be true. But we do have something that makes us special. We are lovers. I guess she's speaking to him. And in this respect, we stand out as a very remarkable achievement of our planet and its star. I say to her now as I'm writing, I'm glad that we have something to recommend us, but I'm more interested in this problem of seeing what's real. And that's why we can't communicate with you reliably. That's why we need to change. And she says, with no physical points of reference, it's always going to be hard for you to accept us. I also don't think it's healthy to do that uncritically. The key is stable attention, strong enough to keep your mind empty of thoughts so we can enter it. The mind flutters around like a little moth, drawn here and there at random. So she says, go to a quiet place. Listen, take notes without thinking about them. Do automatic writing. Open yourself to directed thought from the outside. In other words, channel. And the lessons learned get passed on to you in the next life, and then you can share them. Spirit guides don't tell future stuff. They want to tell the human soul as an advanced spirit. They want to guide you to be an advanced spirit. You're not supposed to know the future. This is the message here. They're not prophets. Spirit guides are not prophets. Spirit guides are guides to help you develop your soul. But the future is an open book to an evolved soul, and we can work on it. So the visitors, the ETs, are good at moving between densities. The dead often follow them, and that's why you'll see ETs and spirit at the same time. It helps us to be aware those souls still exist on the other side. So the fight against soul blindness, he says, this is the foundation of bridge building. He says, remember, bad things happen because pain forms a foundation of strength and lets us see life anew. Out of the coming upheaval, there will emerge either a new humanity or no humanity. The stakes in our era are high. This is the message. I'm going to read that again. I have this marked. It's really important. Out of the coming upheaval, there will emerge either a new humanity or no humanity. The stakes in our era are high. Earth's surface is a womb. In this womb, a baby life has been growing for eons. This baby has matured to the point that it has intellect and therefore the capacity to enter higher consciousness. That is to be born. So the waters of Earth's womb are breaking. And then, after the transformation of the planet, there will still be souls entering physical bodies, but the experience will be different. The whole species is going through a gigantic shamanic initiation. The seeker enters death in order to experience life in a new and more encompassing way. The outcome of this initiation will be that the blinders of physical life will be removed. Randomness and chance will no longer play so much of a role in life as they do now, and souls will enter bodies with knowledge of their reasons for doing so intact. So we'll remember. The living will know the dead. They will no longer be wanderers like the fool in the tarot, but users of the tools of consciousness like the magician with his bundle open on the workbench before him. So what are the tools? The tools that strengthen the soul are understanding, living in objective love, engaging in sensing exercise and meditation to strengthen the soul, and practicing love, compassion, and humility to free it from the bondage of ego. These are the basics. That's the basic message of the Gospels. It's the basic message of all religions. It's the message of man. It's also the reason that the afterlife revolution can now take place. Non-physical mankind, along with many different sorts of midwives and helpers, is preparing physical mankind for the shock of species initiation and to use our planet afterward in a new way. To be born to the world is to die to the womb. On exiting the birth canal, the infant enters on a new life, and so does the mother. There is no return, not for either one. Presence is here now with us, know this, and are here as midwives. We will at last appreciate our planet as a baby appreciates its mother after birth. The relationship between mother and child will be between Earth and humans. We will see Gaia as a living being and our home and friend. Masters will live in conscious relationship with Earth and the cosmos. This will be anyone who enters the physical in the future. Then only in the physical, you only be in the physical to experience and share love. Objective love is the essential human energy, a power, a force in the universe. Gravity draws matter. Love draws us together to seek the higher realms. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. I think this is a good place to stop. It's a lot to digest. I'm not even sure I completely understand it all. I might have to go back and watch this video. So this is the end of video number 2, and I'll be back at a later date for video number 3. In the meantime, just remember, like I always say, the Beatles had it right. All you need is love. Thank you very much for watching. I truly appreciate, a small fraction of the people who are subscribed to my channel actually watch these videos about books. But I feel like it's the best hidden secret. These books are so valuable, and they're new to me. And they present themselves to me, and I feel like there's a message here in all of them. They seem to connect to each other. It's really weird. So I feel a privilege to be able to synopsize them and introduce them to people. And I do hope that you'll keep returning for these books, because I keep trying to pick ones that matter. So thank you very much for watching. I truly appreciate it. And I will be back. And slán go fóill, sláinte.